3 officers dead, 3 wounded in Baton Rouge. A really tough day for Baton Rouge and for the country, really. Here to talk about how to keep our police safe is Sheriff David Clark of Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. He is going to be speaking at the Republican convention tomorrow night. Sheriff, thank you very much for that horrific day. I spoke to the heads of the sheriff department, the police department, and the state police down there, and they told us how their hearts were reeling. Their message is peace and coming together in the country. What's your message?
You don't believe that for 1 minute, do you?
That their message is?
Yeah.
That's what they said to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe them. Of
Any
course I believe them
protests
when they say
over the
that.
deaths of these cops today in Baton Rouge?
I don't know that. I don't know that.
Any riots or protests over the police officers in Dallas, Texas?
What are you asking?
It's a pretty simple question.
I asked you if what's your message to the people. Their message is one of peace. What is your message?
My message has been clear from day one 2 years ago. This anti-cop sentiment from this hateful ideology called Black Lives Matter has fueled this rage against the American police officer. I predicted this 2 years ago. So what I want to know,
okay, Sheriff.
do I want to know?
With all due respect, do you know that this was because of that?
Yes, I do.
As a law enforcement officer?
I've been watching this for 2 years. I predicted this. This anti-police rhetoric sweeping the country has turned out some hateful things inside of people that are now playing themselves out on the American police officer. I want to know, with all of the black-on-black violence in the United States of America, by the way, when the tragedies happened in Louisiana and Minnesota, you know that 21 black people were murdered across the United States? Was there any reporting on that?
There was a black officer who was killed today. But
was there any reporting on that?
Sheriff, please, let's just keep the volume down here. So I understand, and listen,
I'm looking at 3 dead cops this week,
Sheriff,
and I'm looking at 5 last year. You're trying to tell me to keep it down?
Just please, if you will, just please, if we can keep it civil. So, because the message to people at home, I'm sure you want, is one of civility.
I wish, Don, I wish you had that message of civility
have a conversation
toward this hateful ideology, these purveyors of hate.
You don't know what my message is.
That's
what I
what
want
they
to say
do.
to you is,
these people preach vile and virtue
in
the name of
We're going to go to break,
hate.
and we'll be right back. All I want to do is have a conversation. I can't have a conversation with you if we're both talking at the same time. What it sounds like to me is that you're accusing me of violence and supporting a narrative that I'm not necessarily in support of. And if that's what you're accusing me of violence, then you can leave. That's not true. I don't support violence of any type against police officers, against anyone. So if you're accusing me of that, then you're welcome to leave. But if you want to have a conversation, I am more than willing to welcome a conversation with you. I don't disagree with you about there is a narrative across the country that could be harming police officers. But we don't know right now, as someone who's in law enforcement, if that was the actual cause of it. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Do we know that generally the American law enforcement officers are racist? Do we know this?
Go on.
I ask a question.
Do I know American general law enforcement are racist?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone is accusing. If you're insinuating that people are accusing or saying that law enforcement across this country as a whole are racist, then your assumption is wrong.
First of all, this whole anti-police rhetoric is based on a lie. There is no data, and you know this. There is no data, there is no research that proves any of that nonsense. None.
You'd have to be more specific about what data and what nonsense you're talking about.
That law enforcement officers treat black males different than white males in policing in these urban centers.
There is data that's supports.
There is not data.
No. The president spoke about it. Cedric Alexander, who is a law enforcement officer. The president has been lying about it. He said it again the other day when he said black males are 2 times more likely to be shot by a law enforcement officer than white males. Don, that is a lie. That is not a lie.
It is a lie.
Yes.
Show me. Show me.
The research that we have from the Washington Post, that
the Washington Post
study,
debunked that nonsense.
There's also research.
He also said
Sheriff,
this, Don.
There's also research.
He continues.
A Harvard professor that also showed that black people are treated more aggressively by police officers.
No, you are
than other
wrong in your interpretation of that Harvard study, because I read the study. That's not what he said. He said he was surprised to find
that in shootings of the most severe in shootings, that he found no evidence that there was a difference. Also, it should be noted that that study was a very small sampling of police departments across the country. Many people did not find it credible, but it is also interesting that in that research, he found that blacks were treated differently when it came to aggressive policing, but for the most egregious shootings, he found no difference. That's what that study showed.
Well, based on what? Just generally? Are we talking about high crime areas? Are we talking about police officers being under attack? Because let's go back to where this whole thing started in Ferguson, Missouri. The lie was hands up, don't shoot.
Lumping a whole bunch of things into one. If we can do one specific thing,
that's where this whole phony movement started. It started out as hands up, don't shoot.
You're talking about Black Lives Matter,
right?
Okay. So if you want to, you would need to speak to someone who is a member of Black Lives Matter about whether they have perpetrated a fraud on the American people. That's up to Black Lives Matter. That's not me. I'm neither a member of Black Lives Matter, I'm neither a supporter or someone who doesn't support them. I simply report on Black Lives Matter.
Do you condemn the anti-police rhetoric coming from this hateful ideology?
As a journalist sitting here on television, I don't have to condemn anyone, anything. That is something that you should ask. Other people around the country,
I condemn
their jobs to condemn
just
that.
like I condemn the hateful ideology out of groups like the KKK. All right? I condemn it. There is no place in American discourse for that sort of vile, vitriolic hate coming out of this ideology. This has fueled and fanned the flames of this anger toward the American police officer. There's only one group in America, one time, that truly cares about the lives of black people in these urban ghettos. And it's the American police officer who goes down there on a daily basis, puts their life on the line to protect who? Black people. So when you say we just want to have a conversation, let's have a conversation about the black-on-black crime, which kills more black males, which is more of a threat to any black male in the United States than a law enforcement officer.
Sheriff, yes, that's a different conversation. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. There's an issue when it comes to violence. Black-on-black crime, it's crime. White people kill white people, tend to kill white people. Black people tend to kill black people.
Not in the numbers.
That's fine, but that's a different conversation.
I don't care who white people are killing.
That is a different conversation than police brutality. And we're not having that conversation right now. And again, I want to be very clear with you. I condemn all violence of any type, just for the record.
Was the situation between Mike Brown and Darren Wilson, was that police brutality?
But we're not talking about Mike Brown and Darren Wilson.
I am.
No, if you're asking me what the Justice Department showed, the Justice Department showed that it exonerated Officer Darren Wilson, and that the hands up, don't shoot narrative was a false narrative. That has been reported by CNN and by others.
That was another phony report.
What does that have to do with Baton Rouge, Louisiana?
All right, because when you take in rates of involvement in violent crime, and crime in general, but violent crime, you're going to see that black males are overrepresented. Overrepresented in terms of being involved in violent crime. That's going to mean more arrests. That's going to mean more people going to prison. This stuff has already been debunked.
Sheriff, that's a different conversation.
Every time you don't have a response to something I say, you say it's a different conversation.
It's not that I don't have a response to you. It's that we're having two different conversations. I'm asking the questions here. You're answering the questions by asking questions about some other subject that we're not discussing.
We're talking about this hateful ideology called Black Lives Matter. You said you're not a member. You can't be a member. It's not an organization. There's no structure.
That's what you're talking about.
Listen, I understand,
and it is a hateful ideology. I understand it's a very stressful time for you.
These individuals.
And Sheriff, we appreciate you coming on.
They preach vile and vitriol in the name of virtue.
Yeah, thank you, Sheriff. We appreciate it.
Is Candace Owens shocked? We're about to find out. She's the host of Candace, and we're very happy to have her on tonight. Candace Owens, I don't want you to be hysterical about this crime thing, okay? By the way, I'm just asking, can you get taxpayers to build a wall around your house and call in the National Guard to protect you, as Cortez and the rest of the Congress did?
I cannot, unfortunately. And I will tell you, I am live from D.C. tonight, Tucker, and I have to tell you that Miss AOC led a protest in front of the White House today about climate change. She was in a crowd of people, maybe about 500 people. It's 98 degrees. Our therapy must be working, is my point. I mean, I can't imagine suddenly you're terrified to be around groups of people. The insurrection was so bad, and then you just host an insurrection outside of the White House. And so it's just ridiculous. So she's such an actress. But I do want to point this out because I think it's so frustrating. Definitely people outside of D.C. are looking at the situation and going, we all know what this is. We all know that AOC is a bad actress. But do the Republicans know this? Do they actually recognize that AOC is actually doing a very good job? Because what her job is to act and to pretend and to distract while they work. The Democrats are working. I've said this in this program before, and I will say it again in very clear terms. They are working to federalize the police force. The Democrats are working to federalize the police force. Okay, so what AOC is doing right now is making sure that people don't pay attention to the crime and pay attention to instead the white supremacy boogeyman. It's the same thing when you look at Kamala Harris. Everyone's, oh my gosh, what's she doing? Nothing at the border. Yes, nothing at the border is Kamala Harris's job. Her job is to make sure there is an influx of illegals coming in. The Democrats are winning right now. So at the same time that we're mocking her, we have to recognize that AOC is actually winning because she's accomplishing what she's meant to accomplish. Get people focused on white supremacy. Get people focused on the insurrectionists while at the same time they federalize the police force and they change the fundamental demographics of this country to make sure that they can also simultaneously federalize elections down the line.
It's such a good point, and it can't be said often enough, and I fall for it too. She's so infuriating and childish that you just get caught up in the details. Oh, hysteria, I'm in therapy because of the insurrection. And I missed the point that you just made, which is, of course, you're meant to get caught up in the details, so you miss the big picture. Thank you for saying that.
Absolutely.
Candace Owens, a very smart
Absolutely.
person. I appreciate it. Thank you. Hey,
Here with reaction, Candace Owens. I happen to like Piers. I know Piers. He's a trip. He's a fun guy. I don't know if he got fired or if he left on his own. I wish he would have stayed because it was interesting television. I find it compelling to watch, and I can't stand anything about the Royals. It's their thing, not mine. I respect it. Here's the question: government regulators, HR 1 would have what? Fact checkers of ads. Who's going to fact check the fact checkers? Candace?
That's exactly right. And unfortunately, in the United Kingdom, they do not have First Amendment rights. And I hope that this story shows Americans why it is so important to have First Amendment rights. Piers Morgan was all of us when he was dressing down Meghan Markle and calling her out on the blatant lies that she's told. She can't even keep her story straight, by the way. If anybody remembers, about 3 years ago, she said on a panel that she does not read newspapers, that she does not check social media because she doesn't like to read stories about her. Well, apparently that's not true because she's now telling everybody that she was suicidal because of bad press. It's because of racism, even though she's not even, you look at her, you would not be able to discern just by looking at Meghan Markle that she's black. And so what they're basically saying is that you're not allowed to critique Meghan Markle. And for her to put in this phone call to have his voice silenced because she's unhappy with the press that's being sent about her, which, by the way, is felt across the globe. She's a typical leftist narcissist. It really has less to do with the royals and it has to do with a typical leftist progressive in Hollywood seeing something traditional and then saying, you know what, that thing has history, that thing has tradition, and I'm going to call it racist. And I have the grounds to call it racist because, as Meghan Markle is, I'm 25% black. And my son, by the way, if you've seen a picture of Archie and you believe that he has suffered anti-black racism, then I'm a Nigerian prince and give me your credit card details. It's
Candace,
so ridiculous.
I would like to think there are hateful, racist, bigoted people on this earth. I would like to think that it didn't happen. I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. But the fact is, I am very worried about the language in H.R. 1 and that what we see over there could happen here. Am I
It's already
overreacting?
happening here. No, you're not overreacting. It's already happening here. You're sitting here with the fact checkers. What's really going on? We have seen in America already that the speech is starting to get tighter and tighter. And when you're starting to say you're not allowed to have an opinion, forget a fact. You're not allowed to have an opinion. In his opinion, he believes that Meghan Markle is lying. I agree with him. Why aren't we allowed to have an opinion anymore without people telling us your opinion is no longer safe? It's dangerous.
If you want security and privacy, and you live in a $15 million mansion, don't go on Oprah's show because you're going to get
Great idea.
a lot of scrutiny. Congrats again. We're so happy about the baby for you. Congratulations again.
Thank you so much.
All right, Candace, thank you. More Hannity after this.
Mr. Chairman, before I ask my questions, since it has not yet been done, I think it's important to really make sure that the jingoistic, bigoted testimony of Mr. Holman is called out as nearly completely untrue, as being an outrage, and as a former official directing the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, he should know better. So
Mr.
making
Chairman,
sure that I am...
Mr. Chairman.
No, this is my 5 minutes.
Well, what did I say was inaccurate?
Excuse me.
Okay,
I'm not asking a question.
Okay.
or-
The gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes. She's made her point, and I will try to resolve any other issues at the end of her questioning. Okay.
Thank you. So I just think it's important that it's not accepted as accurate testimony.
Okay. Mr. Holman, is there a crisis on the border?
Of course.
And has there been a crisis there for a long time?
Yes.
I just want to get, because your testimony was at the broader issue, and this is critically important, but we also have a broader issue there. We got unbelievable numbers we've seen on the border with apprehensions and everything else, right?
Absolutely. If I can respond to the earlier remark from Wasserman Schultz, I forgot more about this issue than you ever know. So if you say my testimony is inaccurate, it's wrong. Everything I said here is accurate. Bottom line. If you want to go toe-to-toe, I'm here. I'm here in my own time to speak to the American people about what's false
I'm
and
sure
what's
happy
fact.
to go toe-to-toe with you, Mr. Holman.
Well,
happy
I'm
to do
here.
that any day.
But you got to let me respond to your question rather than
I didn't
dropping a
ask you a
bomb and
question.
running away.
It was my time.
So
and I
there's a
wasn't asking
crisis
you a
on the
question.
board.